quite an amount of information, I know. It's overwhelming. But raise your hand if you learn at least one thing that you think is useful. One? All right. Cool. Thank you for that. We're getting closer and closer to the happy hour. So this is good news. We're almost there. We're going to highlight a couple of things. I think this is kind of a summary. We have been hearing all these insights, sharing customers, who is doing what, and yada, yada, yada. And I think the one common thing is like, we need to ensure that we show value. We need to ensure that we know which is the needle that we are moving with this use case and with this effort that our teams are going to be focusing on. So how are we going to engineer our return on AI, and what needs to happen for that to be the maximal opportunity that we can get out of it? And I will say that we're going to have a little bit of a historical flashback here for the last 2 years, because I will say 2 years ago, with the release of ChatGPT from OpenAI and yada, 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 we see that shift in the market. We see the conversations coming from different stakeholders. Now everybody is asking at least about Gen AI, and can I actually have my GPT for my documents and my use cases? So let's call 2023 the year that we actually kind of discovered generative AI with the release of GPT for the general public. And we see everybody else using it outside. There is a lot of Gen AI being used outside. But I will say 2024 has been more the year where we actually think about this more holistically. How are we going to operationalize this? How much is going to cost us? Are we going to cap the cost that we define for each business unit that is going to be using tokens on LLMs? Are we going to experiment first and deploy it after? Do we have an operationalization framework that is going to show the value that we are generating, and how we're going to connect the dots to everything else? And then we also see that 80% of projects of AI never make it and are not successful, and yada, yada, yada. Sounds familiar? Well, why is that? Why is that? Why do we still have that little friction in terms of deploying these projects and make them successful and showing the value that we are generating with it? So it's not a simple question to answer. In fact, it's not a trivial question, but we actually did some research, and we are combining here some customer stories, some insights from a couple of studies with McKinsey and the World Economic Forum. We talked to our partners, Databricks, and we have a lot of insights into why we are not hitting the mark in terms of the value that we are generating when we are deploying these use cases. And a couple of things that we can highlight here. Let me see if these sound familiar. Number one, there is still an education that needs to happen when we talk about Gen AI and AI use cases with LLMs. And I will say that the stakeholders, especially if they come with the C-suite, perhaps the level of education needs to be a little higher, as in what this thing can actually do. And a lot of the times, it's a little bit like the expectation is here. Like, we're going to have a bot for customer success, and it's going to handle all the customers' Q&A that we received through this channel, where we have all of these humans interacting with these humans that have a lot of questions. Well, a lot of the times, we expect that AI bot to be the silver bullet, and there you go, we don't need any more people, and that is going to fix all our problems. I see the faces. The faces are like, it doesn't work that way. We actually have to work on this. This thing can actually hallucinate. We will have to minimize that hallucination. We have to keep the human in the loop, and we cannot expect this bot to be the empathic human that uses logic that we are, right? We are still the humans that are empowered by this technology, and we have to keep it that way. The second one, poor problem definition. This one is very common, and I'm going to provide an example that I think is going to help us think about this in a little more holistic way when we are defining how I'm going to measure value. Which is the needle that I'm going to move from the beginning of the project? I'm going to be thinking about cost savings, operational efficiencies, like what I'm going to prove where the value is coming from. And the problem definition can be extremely poor, which is what generally happens in the field. Example of a poor problem definition. We're going to do predictive maintenance. Typical use case that we have been working for the last 30 years at least on data. And then we say we want to use AI to predict when our machines will break down, period. That's the problem definition. Is that a good problem definition? No. Is it easy to prove value out of that problem definition? Good luck. What are you going to measure how? Right? What will be a better problem definition? I'm going to read it because it's full of detail. Here we go. Great problem definition. Example. We aim to develop an AI system that predicts failures in our top 5 most critical production line machines with 80% of accuracy at least 48 hours in advance, and the system will integrate with our current CMMS using 3 years of historical data from our sensors and maintenance data, and success will be measured by 30% reduction in unplanned downtime for these machines over 6 months with buy-in from our maintenance team. Is that a better problem definition? What is the advantage of that problem definition? That detail. The detail that you're going to be able to grab and connect with the value that you are generating. You're going to have a box to connect that with value. So way better problem definition. What else is going on in the enterprise? FOMO, a lot of FOMO. Are you going with that? Everybody wants the generative AI. Deploy right now. I want my agent. Well, hold on. What is the use case? Is that the real approach that we need to follow? Or do we have a better alternative here? And then hallucinations are scary. Yes, they are scary. But there are also techniques to minimize that. And once again, it depends on the use case that we are targeting. So why are we not hitting more value with projects and with AI? It's a multivariable problem. We have an education problem. We need to better define our problems. We need to better define what is it that we are targeting and how we're going to measure value. And we cannot let the FOMO drive that decision because it's not how it works. So many people out there doing actually things that are measurable. And value is measurable. So this is an example, Ørsted. I like this one a lot because the original definition of the problem, everything was manual. Everything was manual. So these guys were actually consuming all of this news and information. And then you have a group of executives and go-to-market teams that are actually making decisions every single day. And they need to be as educated as they can be when making those decisions. So they were consuming all of this news coming from all of these third parties. And what they did is now they have an agent that is consuming automatically all of this news, is summarizing information in different ways, and is presenting this information to different stakeholders. But something that was 100% manual right now is a micro-automation job, has an LLM involved, has a user interface that these stakeholders are using, and now we have 3,000 employees using this bot and asking questions to make better educated decisions out there. So what is the key component of this, and why I'm showing this slide right now? Technique is there. Technology is there. We have been using this technology and these different samples of data, targeting all of these business use cases that we do know generate value. We have multiple of our customers using a lot of these use cases to generate value. The ones that I am highlighting right now on the slide are so common that we already have a template for you to do it. Go ahead, do it. What's the differentiator? What do you need to bring that is different from you? Well, you're going to link your own data sources and your own teams. But the main goal here is that you can actually show the value that this generates. We're going to give you the technology. We're going to accelerate that time to value. We can target many of these, but at the end, what you want to do is to show the value that you are generating with all of these use cases. So this is a way for us to accelerate that value and connect the dots, but back one more time and think about it holistically. It's not only the data aspect of it and the technology aspect of it, is the so what. Who is the stakeholder that is going to be part of this? Who is the sponsor of the project that understands the value that we are generating, and how we're going to connect those dots holistically so we can actually target something together and move the needle. Another example, this is a plant maintenance, this is supply chain. The original problem, they had 1.3 million maintenance orders across 26 different sites. Again, we are all swimming in data. We all have very diverse infrastructures. Everybody is dealing with silos and pockets of technology that is hard to extract and connect the dots and orchestrate it in a way that you can prove the value and generate that value. So the goal here was to actually identify those data gaps. They are using LLMs to populate the data gaps that they had, and that's actually giving them the pieces that they needed to move on, and they have as an outcome significant time savings for planners and maintainers on each new order that is coming. Again, value, how many hours I'm saving a week, how many people is being augmented because of this, how many new products can we actually work together towards and ensure that we keep moving the needle going to one or other KPI. Like, what is this in terms of value, right? So these metrics matter. The fact that you can show these metrics from the beginning as soon as possible, it matters. When you are thinking about defining a project, you are thinking about how you are going to prove the value from the beginning. Which is the needle that I'm going to move? How many people is this going to be benefit for? And how X times faster can we do it, FTEs? And how we can actually save X amount of time, a month, a year, and then you start adding that up, and it becomes very tangible, very easier for you to make your case internally and have on board the rest of the stakeholders that need to be on board when you are targeting these kind of use cases, no? So, generally speaking, we have to think about this in a holistic way. The technology alone is not going to do it. Technology alone is not going to create the value. From the beginning, think about it holistically. This is a multivariable problem, okay? You're going to have a defined strategy as part of your organization. We want to be responsible. We want to be able to scale with all of these generative AI use cases. We want to know holistically how much money the different business units are spending in tokens and in different LLMs. We want to have a strategy in place for it. We want to think about who else is going to be asking about responsible AI or ethics or hallucinations, and we want to have an answer for that person. We need to ensure that the people is augmented by this technology, but we need to think about what that means for this group of people, right? Is it going to be a class here and there to upskill a little bit that group of people? How are we going to ensure that we collaborate and talk to each other and think outside your box? Sometimes as a data scientist, I am one, we think two in a box. I'm doing this machine learning predictive maintenance. Ooh, super cool. So what? Who cares? Who is going to maintain it? Who is going to ensure that it's reliable? Who is going to retrain the model if you have a drift? How do you think about this more holistically? And then you have to have a process to deliver this. You have to operationalize. You have to have a framework that is going to allow this very diverse group of people not only to collaborate, to keep learning from each other, but to scale, because the demand is going to keep coming, especially with Gen AI as part of the equation. So that is going to keep being part of it. And at the end, that is how you're going to have an organizational success on AI. You are thinking about it holistically, and you do know that it's a multivariable problem. And here are your variables. You have to have that value aspect of it. Which needle I'm going to move? Is this cost savings? Is this revenue growth? Is this operational efficiency? Is this customer satisfaction? How are you going to measure it, right? Then you're going to have your stakeholders. Who cares about it? And is this person involved from the beginning? And do we know which is the value that we are generating from this person? Governance has to be part of that strategy. Do we know where is this coming from? What happened to that data from the beginning to end? Do I have that transparency? Do I have that explainability? Your people is a huge component of it. You need to continue with that learning and development. We need to upskill our people and ensure that we are all pointing to the same direction, where we are maximizing the opportunity. You are augmenting these teams. You are augmenting these humans, right? So let's empower them in the proper way. And then you have a process that is going to allow you to experiment, deploy, empower, deploy, and pass the torch. I am the developer. I am the data scientist. I am passing it to you. You are the responsible AI person. You are the ethical committee. You are legal. You are the risk mitigator, and so on. So there is a lot of personas that need to be part of this multivariable process, and we need to think about it in the most holistical way. A lot of information. I hope you got at least a couple of things, and we can continue the conversation during the happy hour. Thank you.